Hello, everybody. Welcome to this presentation. Today, I want to talk about higher education trends and staying informed. So I will be focusing on two different components. One would be the evolving nature of education, and secondarily, staying informed in continuous learning. When it comes to the evolving nature of education, at one time, higher education was a way to show growth or the strength of a person's spirituality or religiosity. Then it was a way to become informed about natural sciences in prominent professions, which kept increasing over time. In today's modern environment, due to the changing local, national, and global forces, along with the virtual technologies that are available basically through many or numerous platforms, higher education has transformed into a way of thinking, and that is what we call critical thinking about the current and future factors and forces that impact our society, our politics, and our values as individuals, as families, and as a community in each locality. So higher education is a way to grow personally and intellectually, while also allowing learners to refine and chisel their character one course at a time, one semester at a time, over time, and to become responsive to various forces through critical thinking, through competence, and through evidence-based decision-making. And all of this requires learners to become critical thinkers from a global point of view. So the key would be to start thinking globally. So we need to have a global perspective, but we also need to be aware that international forces also have an impact on our decision in each educational institution. So these national forces can be just as impactful as the global or international forces. But ultimately, it's our responsibility as administrators, as faculty members, and as staff of every educational institution to implement locally. So while we have a global perspective, we need to also have a local orientation in order to implement and execute according to the local needs of our students and their family members, as well as the businesses surrounding the institution. So without fully understanding our students and their communities and the businesses and other stakeholders that they will be working with, we will have a difficult time sustaining our success over time as a higher education institution. So our goal should be to become a world-class educational institution, regardless of which city or which environment we operate in order for us to be competitive and to be sustainable. Of course, building a world-class educational institution comes with hard work, as well as uncertainty, controversy, sometimes ambiguity, as well as certain limitations, especially when it comes to funding. There are certain characteristics that indicate that your institution or any college or university is going toward becoming a world-class education institution. And that would be demonstrated through extraordinary teaching, the college having a global orientation and accreditation that is universally valued. Technology and service orientation are other components of world-class education institutions. And these educational institutions that are considered world-class, they tend to connect with the stakeholders in the community, with the industry, and they tend to stay on the leading edge of innovation. Of course, these institutions should have influential and proud graduates and alumni. And more importantly, they're always involved in research and scholarship, which actually creates a positive impact in the local, national, and international environments in which the institution operates. So a world-class educational institution is student-focused. They offer excellent teaching environments for learning, and they provide a fun as well as engaging environment for research, while they attract learners and educators from all over the world. A world-class education institution should attract a diverse student body. As you can see, my photo here with my graduate students at the Institute of International Studies during one summer when I was guest lecturing there. They happen to be from many different countries, including Sweden, Myanmar, Germany, Thailand, Iraq, Turkey, Iran, Afghanistan, Ukraine, Russia, and the United States. So even though it's a small graduate course, nonetheless, they are very diverse, and this class was being held in Thailand at Ramkhamhaeng University. However, there's only one Thai student, the rest are all international from different places and different continents. And in this class of undergraduate students, which included 216 learners from different cultures in different countries to facilitate these learning opportunities and interactions among these students. A world-class education should not be bounded by time, by place, or by funding. So when we look at these world-class education systems, the goal should be to drive toward them. And there are three components I want to talk about. That is student orientation, learning orientation, and research and change orientation that these institutions tend to demonstrate, which are not just trends, but a means of being informed in today's environment for all faculty members, staff members, and educational administrators as well. When it comes to the student-focused orientation, we need to ask ourselves, what do students want? Well, of course, they say, teach me to learn, teach me to innovate, teach me to create value for myself, for my family, for my organization, and above all, teach me to think critically while I'm at this institution. So, of course, in the past, educational administrators created the curriculums at a university, but we need to have a changing paradigm, which means today, organizations and consumers have a lot to say about those curriculums. So their input is really what should drive the curriculum at every single institution. This way, those graduates will be in demand by the organizations that sort of provide input for academic curriculums. So welcome and serve your students as your guests, because guests are always transitionary. They come and they stay with you for a period of time and then they leave. And oftentimes you hope that they come back, and obviously you want them to be satisfied. So the quality of service in an operation in the actual product are inseparable. We need to serve those students before they come to our institutions, while they're there taking their classes and completing their degree, and after they leave the institution. Those components obviously determine how committed, how helpful the alumni are to the institution. If organizations and institutions are not happy with your product or your guest, in other words, they're not happy with their skills and competencies, then they will not hire your graduates. They'll hire the graduates of other colleges, either locally, nationally, or even internationally, that serves the demands of these organizations or constituencies in every locality. So the responsibility of leadership is to plan, to organize, to lead, and to create a culture that is focused on delivering superior value for all of your students at all times. Value creation is a very essential component of long-term success, and you can do this through teamwork and having a guest-oriented culture for all of your transitionary students or guests. In terms of the second component, the learning orientation, as Dr. Bob Preziosi and I focused on our adult education in academia textbook, we often say that in the past, teachers taught and encouraged students to learn. However, in today's environment, teachers not just teach, but they facilitate learning, they engage their students, and they also measure learning in order to make improvements for the next session and for the next course. So involve your students, and the key to making sure that students are doing their work comes down to involving students in the learning process, asking them to share their feelings about it, and helping them integrate the knowledge into their daily routines. So engagement can increase their learning, their satisfaction, their productivity, which actually leads to the organization becoming a world-class educational institution. We know that individuals who are engaged can be up to 6 times more productive than their non-engaged peers, whether it's in the classroom or in the workplace or in the boardroom. As I emphasized in my book on workforce diversity management, all educators should involve their students' head, their heart, and their daily habits in the learning process in order to better evaluate their progress and increase their learning on an ongoing basis. That's what we mean by continuous learning and by engaging your students in everything that we do in the classroom, as well as outside the classroom through various online management systems or learning platforms. A world-class learning environment is a place where you can fall asleep in the hallways and still wake up feeling as though you learned something. That's the statement I heard from Dr. Navid Malik when I interviewed him. And that's what he said about the MIT culture where he got his doctorate degree from. So the person who dares to teach must never cease to learn in order to help create a world-class organization in every educational institution. As the Japanese proverb states, if you understand everything, you must be misinformed. So the key to becoming a world-class organization is ultimately research. Research is what keeps you and I informed as educators, as faculty members, so we can pass that on to our students. Now, the third component of a world-class institution would be research in change orientation. So we need to educate, train, and empower our staff and faculty on a regular basis. As I've mentioned in my textbook, Earning a Doctorate Degree in the 21st Century Management, every individual who is involved in the educational arena should aim for a higher and higher degree. So earning a terminal degree is important for everyone involved in the education. This way they can research and engage all their students in the research process as well. Technological progress and global trends are now providing educational opportunities and options to people all over the world. So if you cannot earn your degree or advanced degrees locally, you can certainly do it through online platforms now in other institutions of higher education at any time in the field that you desire. So we need to empower, enable, and provide funding for our colleagues so they can earn the degrees that they wish to complete. The field of academia using cyberspace technology is changing fast. We must change and adjust accordingly. According to Professor Gary Hamel, schools can be notorious institutions of habit, which has served them well for over a century, but is not going to get them through the next decade if they do not bring about changes to their culture and to their environment. So change is no longer a luxury, but a necessity and imperative for educational institutions in order for us to keep up with our students. And based on the institution's unique mission and vision, we need to focus on consistency and congruency between what you offer to your students, what you deliver to your students, and what those students actually gain. So there must be consistency between the curriculum, between the teaching, and the competency that is gained by the students who will eventually be hired by your customers in the local area, the national area, or even in the international arena. Academic institutions that wish to be successful and that wish to be world-class in a 21st century environment should challenge the traditional conventions. They need to research and experiment. They need to innovate and apply and improve based on what they learn on those experiments. These institutions need to go beyond the fads that come about every month or every year. They need to create learning opportunities for their staff, for their faculty, and for their students. They need to work synergistically. In other words, staff, faculty, and students must be partners in the learning process, and they need to engage the wider community stakeholders as well. Ultimately, these organizations need to create the future through meaningful improvements, which can be done. Your organization and your people can become a world-class institution. Overall, try to maintain the curriculum, the teaching, and the competency consistent. This way, what students actually gain in the skills that they can offer to the community are based on the curriculum and the teaching that your faculty deliver. As long as they're consistent, then you have done your job. In summary, let me say that the goal should be to offer a world-class education, and you can do that by having a student-focused orientation, learning orientation, and research and change orientation, which are not only possible, but mandatory for organizations nowadays to survive. And you need to constantly improve and adjust your offering for your students. So your offering, your delivery, and the competencies that are gained by the students are all the same. Good luck, and thank you for watching this presentation.